this unit is going to look at 3 topics. We're going to look at the formation of the planet Earth. We are going to look at the scientific method, and we're going to look at basically the general study of environmental issues. So the things that are affecting our environment. We're going to start with planet Earth. So how did the Earth form? How do we categorize the different parts of the Earth? Things like that, how the Earth has changed over time. So please take notes on this PowerPoint and on the video that you're going to watch, and you will submit those notes into me via email. We'll scan them, take a picture for 10 points. The Earth is 4.5 billion years in age, so it's relatively, I guess it's old. We think it's old because 4.5 billion is a lot of years, but the universe is way older than that. So it's pretty young in terms of overall age of something in the universe. Asteroids collided at some point in space, and the formation of rock fragments ended up becoming the planets in our solar systems, along with the influences of gravity and various chemicals and heat. All of the planets, we are one of 8 planets that orbit around the sun in the Milky Way galaxy. Please watch the video link that is attached, the YouTube video. It's about 8.5 minutes long. There's some ads in there, so just ignore them. And write down 10 important events that happened from the planet's formation to now. The purpose of this video is kind of to give you a really short and condensed history of how the Earth formed in outer space to the point where we are today, where it actually is the only planet that we know of that is supporting living things. So just watch the video, pause this one, watch that video, and take notes. Try and come up with 10 important events that has happened along the way in Earth's history. In the video, it referenced a supercontinent. This is called Pangaea, and the scientist that first suggested that a supercontinent actually existed was Alfred Wegener. The idea is that all of the continents were at one point one huge landmass, all connected together. And that over the 4.5 billion years in plate tectonics, which are things that cause earthquakes, these continents, basically start to pull apart from each other until they are where they are today. So here's an illustration of what that supercontinent can look like, and you can kind of see how things would fit together. Here's where Africa was and how it's connected to North America here. Europe, India, and China kind of butt up against the bottom part there of Europe, with Australia fitting pretty conveniently right into the pocket there. There are 6 pieces of evidence that actually support the idea that this supercontinent actually existed. Number 1 is just the shape of present-day continents. So obviously you can see how these pieces really fit together pretty nicely. The second are looking at the existence of 2 different fossils, Mesosaurus fossils and Glossoteris fossils. The fact that those fossils are located along the coast of North America and on the coast of Africa, when there's no way those animals would have been able to walk across the ocean how it is now, is an idea that these had to have been connected at some point, and then when they split apart, those animals were also split apart. They look at rock structures and glacial deposits to again compare from one coast to another coast, and they look at radiometric dating, so basically taking the rock material, fossils, and figuring out about how old they are, and then comparing them throughout the world to try and put together this piece. We divide the Earth into 4 different categories or compartments: the atmosphere, which is the air; the hydrosphere, which is all of the water, fresh water and salt water, plus the water in the atmosphere in gaseous form; and the lithosphere, which is the land. The biosphere is the part of all 3 of those where living things can actually survive and exist. All 4 of these compartments or categories of the Earth interact strongly with one another. So for instance, things that are happening in the atmosphere are going to affect things happening in the hydrosphere or the lithosphere. If things happening in the lithosphere are going to affect the things happening in the water and in the air. So all four of these categories or compartments of the earth work together very, very closely and influence each other. Starting with the atmosphere. The atmosphere is a layer of gas surrounding the earth. We put the atmosphere into layers as you go up. So this is the land that you're walking on. When you're going outside and you take a deep breath, you're actually taking a breath of the troposphere. The next layer up is the stratosphere, and this is where the ozone layer sits at the very, very top part of the stratosphere, the ozone layer, then the mesosphere, and then the ionosphere, which is going to take you up into space. Our current atmosphere in the troposphere is 79% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, and 1% other gases. And this is a pretty big change from what the atmosphere was when the Earth first started to form, like you saw in the video, where it had a ton of carbon dioxide and methane in it. The hydrosphere includes all of the water that exists on the planet. This includes liquid water, so rivers, lakes, oceans, freshwater and saltwater. Frozen water, so all the water that's in the ice caps and the glaciers. And then gaseous water, the water vapor that's surrounded in the atmosphere. The lithosphere is a solid portion of the earth, and it contains 3 layers as well. It has the crust, which is the outer part, the part that you walk on, the mantle, which is the middle portion, and then the core, which we divide into the inner core and the outer core. The core has got really, really high temperatures. Nothing is survivable there, and we have not actually even been able to drill into an area that even comes close to the core of the earth. I would draw this diagram so that you know it. I would also draw the atmosphere diagram if you didn't, showing the different layers, because you'll probably see these diagrams on a test at some point. The biosphere is an approximately 12-mile thick area of the earth in which all life exists, and it's made up of parts of the atmosphere, parts of the lithosphere, and then parts of the hydrosphere. Living things can't exist everywhere on the planet. There's only about a 12-mile thick area in which life can exist. Last is just to mention biogeochemical cycles. This is the idea that we have elements, so like the nitrogen in the atmosphere that I mentioned, the oxygen, carbon, water. These are elements or compounds that are constantly being circulated on the earth. And it's very important to understand that the circulation of these elements or these compounds are really important in determining the health of the planet. So typically the elements and compounds are assembled into living tissue. They get passed out as waste, or they're just cycled through between the atmosphere, the lithosphere, and the hydrosphere. So the 4 main biogeochemical cycles are the water cycle. So the idea that water circles through the planet. So this would be, evaporation is when it gets evaporated off of the surface. Then it goes up into the sky where it condenses, condensation, it cools. And then it comes back to the ground through precipitation, and then it either runs off into a body of water or infiltrates or seeps into the groundwater supply. The plants pull up the water from the groundwater supply, evaporates it off, and the whole cycle starts all over again. So just this idea that water cycles through in different forms over and over and over again. Carbon also is cycled through. Carbon and oxygen are cycled through kind of together. They're linked together. Nitrogen cycles through, and phosphorus. Those are the 4 main biogeochemical cycles. And if these cycles get disrupted, then there are serious consequences to the planet. So for instance, when we talk about global warming, we're talking about disrupting this carbon-oxygen biogeochemical cycle. It's being disrupted, and you can see that there's some severe consequences to that. Make sure that you, like I said, snap a picture of your notes and email them to me or post them on the Google Classroom under the assignments so that you can get your points for that, and have a great rest of your day.